have to look up at the stars. No, 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 no.
Come take a look at my dream world.
You don't have to look up at the stars.
Chat, if you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in the jar. And the way I change gear, you can put me in the car. I remember when me and Seif used to sneak in every concert door. Now I got my feet in. Every day is Get Friday, no weekend.
You don't have to look up at the stars.
Welcome back, guys, to your favorite live sports show. I know it has been a while, but we were going through a lot of stuff. First, let's thank Teff for our new intro, and we are dedicating this entire season, as some of you will know, to the life and times of Gavin Hinson. May he rest in peace. Stuff we had to go through a lot the last month and a half, but we are back, and we promise to be better than ever. And what better way to start than to have two of my good friends. First, it's been too long, Ken, but Ken and Greenbage, what's been going on?
I'm good, man. Glad to be back.
And as usual, your favorite Miami Dolphins fan, Jimmy Thompson. He's also a Miami Heat fan, but one half of the dynamic duo, otherwise known as JT and the Don. What's going on, Jimmy?
Everything's good, man. Glad to be on, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, gentlemen. It has been way too long, and it felt like it's way too long since I felt strongly about my Green Bay Packers, but at least the first half of that 27-10 victory, I felt away, guys. But I'll start with you, Jimmy, as you're shaking your head. Is it too early to say, or is it even bad to say, that the Packers are back as title contenders?
Oh, I get it now. This is why you wanted to have me on. Packers win a game. They look decent. You want to have me on to ask me this ridiculous question. Like, I knew this was going to happen. As soon as you guys played the Bears and beat them, everybody's like, the Packers are back. And it's like, what did you expect was going to happen? Now, I guess I got to say yes, because, as long as that division is active, you guys are always going to be guaranteed a playoff spot. So, yeah, I can't really see you guys going that far based on what I've seen so far, because you got crushed week 1, and then also you guys just beat a team that threw the ball 11 times, even though they were trailing most of the game. So I don't know what to take away. I don't think you guys are any better or worse than when I thought you were before the game. Packers are what they are, man. I got to see more.
You'll be surprised at my answer. I'm done here, but I'll let Ken jump in. Ken, are the Packers back as title contenders, or can you not get out of your mind what you saw in week 1?
So it's interesting that you would ask if they're title contenders, because when you sent the question, you just asked if they were contenders. And I was going to say, yeah, they're contenders for their division, but they're definitely not title contenders. And the main reason for that is you're not going to come up against teams who are going to be so complicit to their own demise as the Bears were last night. The Bears refused to stop the run. They just allowed you to continue to gash them over and over and over again. And yes, they only threw the ball 11 times. So what does that tell me? They're going to be much more difficult tests down the road. You guys have to play the Buccaneers next. You have a very game Patriots defense coming up. The offense doesn't look good, but their defense is still legit. Then down the line, you have the Bills. You have the vastly improved Lions. I commit to the Rams. Then you still have the Rams, and then you have the Vikings again. You have quite a few tough tests coming up. And I made this point on a English-based podcast last week. Aaron Rodgers is the NFL equivalent of...
People watch football?
Yeah, apparently so. So they have this Munzie Talks. This guy, Darren Munzie, he has this podcast where they talk about... Basically, he talks about everything. He has a podcast for every sport under the sun. But on his NFL show, they were asking about the Packers last week, and they said that Aaron Rodgers is the NFL equivalent of Jose Mourinho. He doesn't like the kids. He likes to get a lot of old men and people that he has experience with. So as a result, when you look at what you are doing with these young receivers, you're literally depending on them to be able to carry you because Alan Lazare can't do it on his own. Robert Tunyon is not as involved in the offense as you would like. And you can't throw the ball to the backs 20 times and expect to have success. So when you take all of that into consideration, I don't see the Packers as title contenders, not this season, not as they're currently constructed and the way how they are playing football at this point in time.
Well, here it is, guys. I don't have them either. And I'm the big Packers fan here on this show. Like, reality is, one, the team is too one-dimensional at the moment. And I knew going in that is what the offense is going to have to be. It is going to be Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon 24/7. Because reality situation, as you mentioned, Ken, Aaron Rodgers does not trust young receivers. That's why they never do so well in their first season. And I think part of it, as I can't remember which veteran, I think it was Mercedes Lewis, made mention of it. When you come into Green Bay, you have to learn essentially two playbooks. You have to learn Matt LaFleur's playbook, and then you have to learn Aaron Rodgers' playbook because the call is going to come in, but that can change at the line depending on whatever Aaron Rodgers sees. So it's a steep learning curve for young receivers. This is not letting Aaron Rodgers off the hook. I'll just temper what I have to say about number 12 right now. But the offense is going to be very, very, very one-dimensional. I don't know what game plan Chicago went in because you have to know that was what was coming. Against better defenses, especially Tampa Bay's front seven, which is likely the best run defense in the entire NFL. I don't know what we're going to look like. And then our offensive line is very inexperienced. We just got back Elton Jenkins, but David Bakhtiari is still not there at left tackle. So it's not that you really want to be dropping back to pass all that time. No, the thing is, what was supposed to be the strength of this team this season was supposed to be this defense. And I absolutely love the pieces that we have this year. I thought this was going to be elite defense. The problem is, I liken Joe Barry to being a taxi driver with a Ferrari. Now, the reality is, by profession, right?
Did you just call the Packers defense a Ferrari?
Like, and it's going to sound weird, but yeah, man for man, this is supposed to be, and this can be an extremely elite defense. And by profession, a taxi driver is a professional driver. But you don't want a professional taxi driver to be driving an F1 car, no, do you? And that's the situation that you find yourself in. This, when you look man for man at every single position, this is a very, very good Packers defense. The problem is you have a defensive coordinator that likes to drop back in soft zones. And if I'm being fair, part of the issue is up front in that front seven. Whenever Kenny Clark sits, there is absolutely no penetration up front. That gives me cause for concerns again against better teams. And why bring back Joe Barry as a problem for this Green Bay Packers defense? We saw the opener. You have one of the best three shutdown corners in the entire league in Jair Alexander. You just paid him the most money by corner by by a good margin. And you sat back in zone against arguably the best receiver in all of football in Justin Jefferson. And never once did you decide to line up your best corner against this guy. And Justin Jefferson ran wild against your zone coverages, which absolutely fooled no one, Kirk Cousins included. Like, made a living off of that. This defense, these players are all, like, if there is a defense that should be playing man exclusively, it is this Packers defense. But I've just seen a defensive coordinator that sits down and says, I don't know how to coach man. I only know to play soft zones. Jimmy, you seem to disagree?
Well, first, I can't get over that you called them a Ferrari. I think of the Packers defense as more of like a pre-owned Lexus. Like, at first glance, it looks really good. But then when you take a deeper look, you realize it's just an overpriced Toyota Camry. Like, that's what it is. So I said this on, I think it was on Marcus's show when we were talking about the Packers. And I said, Packers will only go as far as this defense. I agree with you on that. But I think you're looking at the wrong person that needs to be the X factor for that defense to take off. It's not the secondary and Jair Alexander because they're good. It's Rashawn Gary. Like, you guys are going to go as far as Rashawn Gary will take you. Like, I never liked him coming out of college because he underachieved at Michigan. You guys, anytime he takes one little leap forward, you guys hype him up and be like, oh, he's good. Like, spend a first-round pick on this guy. He's supposed to be a physical freak. You let all these proven pass rushers go in the past because you thought this guy was going to turn into that next elite pass rusher. And he hasn't. And until he doesn't matter what Jair Alexander is doing, doesn't matter if Clark is on the field, doesn't matter what Rodgers does. Like, unless that guy shows up, this team will not do what they're supposed to do. And the defense, I mean, what do you want him to do? Like, Justin Jefferson is doing the same thing that Cooper Kupp did with the Rams. That's exactly the same offense. Like, they're going to match Jefferson up as much as possible against linebackers and safeties. Like, he will never see a corner.
But here's the problem. If you're playing zone, that's going to happen. If you had Jair Alexander shadowing, and I'll show you, the one possession that he did shadow him, do you know that happened to be incomplete? And not just an incomplete, it turned out to be an offensive pass interference. And I'm not saying that Jair Alexander is going to shut him down the entire game. What I'm saying is if you're paying big money to a supposed elite corner, let that elite corner shadow the team's best receiver for the game, especially when he demands it. Now, I agree with you with Rashawn Gary. As far as to even go, we made a huge mistake letting the wrong Smith leave. We should have kept Zadarius Smith, as I continually said, and let Preston Smith go. I know Zadarius is coming off of a back injury, but I think Zadarius Smith is easily one of the most underrated defenders in the entire NFL because
he's a stud.
Because not only is he a great pass rusher, he's just a good football player, period. And the areas in which Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith struggling, and there are two areas. One, especially, is setting the edge, and then just taking on the run altogether. These are things that Zadarius Smith is completely elite at, but we can go on, and this is not a Packers podcast.
And that's the scary part. Like, Rashawn Gary's like 300 pounds. Like, how can you not set the edge as a 300-pound person? Like, that's what worries me. And I feel like they don't shadow with Jair Alexander because of that same reason. You guys don't get pressure. So if you get no pressure and Jair Alexander is covering Justin Jefferson one-on-one, yeah, it's great. But after 2-3 seconds, it's going to be toast. So I get it. I just don't think you guys have the pass rush to say, like, all right, we're just going to line up man-to-man and play Revis Island all day.
I may agree with that because letting Zadarius Smith go was a huge mistake, and we found that out in week 1. But, Ken, as I talked about the identity, you saw a situation where Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon were just giving the ball time and time and time again after hardly touching the ball against Minnesota. Do you think that this is a key to the Packers' success? Do they continue? Can they sustain this new run-first identity?
So there are 18 weeks in an NFL season, and there's 17 games that each team is going to play. And to ask these two men to do that for 17 games is going to be abysmal for them and for your offense. Now, as we had mentioned before, the Bears knew that this was going to be a run-first game from the Packers, and somehow they still found no way to stop them. This is not going to be the case when you come up against better teams with better defenses. The Bills right now look like one of the most complete teams that we've seen in the NFL in a very long time. You are not going to be able to run on Buffalo like you ran on Chicago. You made mention of Tampa, just how good their defenses look, and you're going to play them next. You're not going to be able to run on Tampa the way how you ran on Chicago. Unfortunately, because of Jose Mourinho as your quarterback, you have no choice but to rely on those running backs because they have been there for a while. They have that rapport. And not chances are, because we saw it a lot last night. You're playing two running back sets a lot now. You're getting both of them on the field where it can be read option to one and pass to the other. So when you have them on the field so often, and then you're expecting them to run the ball, you're going to be splitting Aaron Jones out of the backfield into a wide receiver position so that he can then, start being another option for Aaron in the passing game. you are setting yourself up for problems because the amount of punishment that these guys will take, if they're expected each to carry the ball 20 times, that's 40 carries between the two of them. Plus any catches that are coming out of the backfield. I don't know how they sustain it. Last night looked really, really good. But if that is the template, when you come up against a tougher defense, it's not going to work that way. And then Aaron Rodgers is going to have to rely on the kids. So,
All you have to do is mention Vita Vea because that's who we're going to come up next. We don't run against Vita Vea. Well, Jimmy, same question. Is this the formula for success for these 2022 Packers?
You know, I want to agree. Kim makes great points, but ironically enough, isn't this the same blueprint of the team that owns you guys every year? Like they're not a passing team. They just run all year and then they come and just handle business against the Packers. This is what the 49ers do, except you guys have a better quarterback. I actually think it is sustainable, and I'll tell you why. One, because we already mentioned the division, but I think you're underestimating how good these two running backs really are. Like Aaron Jones, like if he was on any other team, like if you put him on the 49ers, like he's a top 5 running back. Like any other situation where he gets the volume, if he was with the Saints, like with Drew Brees, like we'd be talking about him as a top 5 back. Like there's not many guys that can run and catch the ball like he can and also be on the field as a pass protector. Now, AJ Dillon is the guy I think that people are really sleeping on. Like they just think of him as like this big power guy, but like you saw last night, dude has moves. Like I've never seen a guy at 250 jump cutting like like he's a smaller back. And he also is a good receiver as well. You forget not only did he out snap, but he out targeted Aaron Jones in the first game as well. So you got those two guys that can do everything. They can run the ball, they can catch the ball, they can pass block. Like they literally never have to leave the field. What I'm looking at is the Packers are going to bore you to death the first half of the season. And what does that mean? The receivers get better. And now you got the best quarterback in the league. Who a lot of people say, now you got him facing stacked boxes as a quarterback. You don't think Aaron Rodgers can eviscerate one-on-one coverage? Like you're talking about the king of like the free play, trying to get people to jump off sides. Like if everybody's in the box to stop the run, I think that sets up well for once those receivers do get on the same page with him later on this season. I absolutely think it's sustainable because I think they're going to manage those two backs well. They're going to manage their reps. Like one game, someone's going to go off. The next game, another one's going to be the focal point. And as long as you got 12 back there, you always got a chance to win a game. So, yeah, I think it's definitely sustainable for him. And I think it's a smart play that people aren't watching and looking out for because they're basically copying the 49ers.
But there's a reason they copy the 49ers because they all come from that same Mike Shanahan tree. Kyle Shanahan's dad. From Kyle Shanahan to Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, Mike LaFleur, that's also in New York Jets. Like Arthur Smith, they all come from that Mike Shanahan tree. So it is not a surprise that the offenses look similar. Whether or not it is sustainable, guys, I'll tell you now, Ken, it has to be sustainable. And the reason it has to be, Neil is tired of hearing me say this one thing in all sports over and over again. Players over plays. And the reality of the situation is you're going to have to get your best players the ball, whether it be football, whether it be basketball. And the best skilled players on the Packers right now, in the absence of a Davante Adams, none other than Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. And I don't know why it took a game for Matt LaFleur to be reminded of this. Like, this has to be a run-first team. You can't be dropping back and passing. As we know, Aaron does not trust Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson. Christian Watson, for obvious reasons, we all saw that drop 75-yard bomb. That would have been a walk-in touchdown. And your offensive line is not the same as it used to be when Corey Linsley was your center. Like, the interior part of your offensive line was the strength. When you had Corey Linsley as your center, Elton Jenkins was the left guard, and then next to him, the left tackle, David Bakhtiari. Two of those three men are currently not there. So, like, you could afford to drop back and pass, even if your wide receivers weren't getting separation because you had all that time. The reality of the situation is these two men are the best players on your team, not named Aaron Rodgers. And that is the strength of this Green Bay Packers offense right now. You're going to have to live and die. So Ken was talking about those two backs system. It's because both of them are good pass catchers. they're two pass catchers that Aaron Rodgers actually trusts, and they're the best players on the team. So you're going to have to put your best players on the field because at the current moment, we all know Aaron Rodgers doesn't trust Romeo Dobbs. He does not trust Christian Watson. You're going to have to put somebody out there. And why are names failing me right now? Robert Tonyan is only now recovering from an ACL injury that he had last year. So he's going to take some while to get back up to speed. Those two players we just mentioned, those two running backs, are indeed your best skill position players. And when you look at the two games, even though they got blown out in Minnesota, I want to see, look at Aaron Jones' numbers. He has both receiving and rushing 246 touches for 9.5 yards a touch. That is a guy. You have to give him the football. Whether teams are bringing 9 and 10 in the box, you're going to have to live with Aaron Jones right now because the reality of the situation, your receivers are not up to par. Alan Lazard is not a deep threat per se. He's more of a red zone target. Neither is Randall Cobb at this age. He's not you can't really stretch the field. And the players you can stretch the field with, well, are a bunch of rookies that, well, we just said it over and over again. Number 12 really does not trust. But guys, I think the real test, as you both mentioned, is the upcoming game for the Packers. The team with the stingiest defense so far in the league, only giving up 6.5 points per game after 2 weeks, and that is indeed Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ken, I will not start with you because I know you have some hatred for this team, so I'll start with Jimmy right now. Having seen 2 weeks, I know we are about to watch the Vikings and the Eagles play, so this is kind of a tough question to ask. But Jimmy, do you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the best team currently in the NFC?
Well, first of all, I know their defense is good, but let's pause. I mean, they faced a team without Dak, and then they also faced Brokeback Jameis, who is the interception machine. So, I mean, I know they're good, and I know they handled you guys. Was it last year when you guys went down there and Aaron Rodgers threw 2 picks and he just quit? So I know that's a tough matchup. 2 years ago, I know it's a tough matchup for you guys, but I'm going with the team that I picked to go to the Super Bowl from the NFC, and I still think it's the 49ers. And hey, look, I love Trey Lance, and I'm not a Jimmy G fan, but hey, everybody has been saying Jimmy G's better. Guess what? He's back. So I'm automatically putting the expectations up there along with it. 49ers, they got their quarterback. Everybody says this is a championship roster. They're a quarterback away, and you just got them. So until they show me otherwise, I still think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC. The Bucs, I really can't give it to them just because we were talking about offensive line issues, especially on the interior. They have it. You saw it yesterday. They really could not run the ball on the Saints. And we know Tom Brady, more than any player in the NFL, needs offensive line protection because he's not creating his own plays with his feet. It's got to be blocked. And it's an old team that's already injured. Mike Evans gets a hamstring injury every 5 plays. That's probably why he fought yesterday and wanted to get kicked out. He was tired. He was hurt. He was ready to go home. Julio's already hurt. He fell down the stairs and he's already out. Chris Godwin came back too soon. Leonard Fournette's a ticking time bomb with injuries. This is just, and Tom Brady's is the oldest man in the league. So it's a ticking time bomb. They're just too old and too fragile for me to say they're the best team in the NFC, and they haven't played anybody. It's the Niners.
Ken, same question. I know it's kind of hard for you to answer a question about your hated division rivals, but through 2 weeks, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the best in the conference?
So it's a little hurtful that Jimmy is going to say that they haven't played anybody when they just beat my Saints. But, I'm going to have to suck that one up because they just beat my Saints.
It was strictly Jameis. I like the Saints. And my boy Kamara was out yesterday, so I would like to think that would have helped.
Yeah, no, that definitely would have helped because we went into that game a bit short-handed. And our defense played well, but right now the question is not about my Saints. The question is about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and absolutely not. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not the best team in the NFC. That they could never get that title when they're going up against my currently inept offense in the New Orleans Saints, and could not muster more than 3 points before the fight. No, you have to find a way to put points on the board if you are going to be considered an elite complete team, and they can't do that. They can't do that consistently. So they played in the first week, And the first week, who did they play? No, they played the Cowboys. The Cowboys when Dak got hurt, and the Cowboys who have no wide receivers outside of CD Lamb. They managed to keep them to 3 points. They only scored 19 points against the Cowboys. So now they come up against my Saints, and that's always a bad matchup for them. Let's be fair. Because we are usually able to rush four, and when we rush four and play coverage in the back end, we can get home with the four, and then Brady can't really find anybody on the back end because he likes to go to Evans, and Lattimore puts him in his pocket before the game even starts. So when you look at what happened yesterday, unless the refs don't give them those two ridiculous penalties that keeps them on the field, they don't get that first touchdown before the pick six. They don't get that touchdown. And from the time that touchdown happened, the Saints are now playing catch up, which then now leads to Jameis making mistakes. The first interception, I don't really put that so much on him because Chris Olave could have done more. He could have worked back to the ball. But the other two, Jameis was pressing, and especially the second one, that was an extremely poor decision on his part. The Buccaneers are a good team. I'll give them that. And they do have a very good defense. But offensively, they show themselves to be fairly inept. And as Jimmy said, they're just waiting for injuries to happen with all of these old, fragile men that they have in that lineup. So, I mean, I guess we can talk about the fight in a second. So I'm not even going to bother to go to that. But no, the Buccaneers, I can't give it to them. If I had to pick a team right now based on what I saw in week one alone, it would have had to be the Vikings. Because the Vikings show that they can put up points. They have a balanced offense with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins has his flaws, but if you give him time and you get him a man that's open, he's going to give him the ball and let good things happen. And their defense is still pretty stout. I mean, we're going to see just how good it is tonight when they go up against the Eagles. But right now, having seen the majority of the league, I would say that the Vikings definitely are better than the Buccaneers.
You are never, ever, ever going to get me to say good things about two teams in this league. The one they played last night and the one we played in week one.
You're gonna have to say something good about the Vikings this year. The Bears, we know that's not happening, but the Vikings, you ain't gonna have a choice. You ain't gonna have a choice.
Through those airports, I wear this jersey or my two green Aaron Rodgers jerseys. You are never, but I'm gonna have to say Tampa Bay to avoid saying Minnesota, and it's just that front seven. That front seven of Tampa Bay is just that good. Not only as a unit are the Bucs giving up just 6.5 points per game or something like that. They are giving up less than 7 yards per. No, sorry, I lied. Let me check my numbers here.
While he's checking the numbers, you're a Saints fan. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did the Saints not run on the Bucs yesterday with Vita Vea in there? Every time I looked up, I saw Mark Ingram moving. I saw Taysom Hill moving. I mean, the Bucs are good, but I mean, they can be run on. This is not like the past where like it was not happening.
Yeah, one of the funniest plays that they had yesterday was I don't remember who our center's name is, but they snapped the ball. Vita Vea decided that he was going to try to do a bull rush up the middle, and the guy was like, "Okay, I'll just help you this way, and we'll run the other way." You know, they can be run on, and they were run on yesterday.
I hope that's the case because I don't know if there's a better inside linebacker duo than Devin White and Davante David. Like, this team is giving up less than 5 yards per pass play, like 4.6. This is crazy. And yes, the offense has looked anything but good. But at some stage, they will have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Julio Jones all on the field at the same time. And I have to believe that Tom Brady is good enough to make these weapons work. Like, this defense has been crazy. And granted, they played the Cowboys for a part without Dak Prescott, and they played your Saints, Ken, without Alvin Kamara. But again, you can only play who's in front of you. And reality is, like, they made Jameis. Because remember, what we saw early of Jameis last season, and then the end of game or week one, Jameis looked like he put those turnovers in his past. That was definitely not the case against the Saints. Or, sorry, against the Buccaneers. I'm going to have to lean against the Buccaneers. I will give a caveat and say I will look and see what Minnesota looks like tonight. But until further notice,
A good enough look last week.
oh,
Look, I get it. I get it. You don't
Oh.
want to say the Vikings. That's like me saying, "Oh, the Patriots." Like I get it, but you got to give credit where credit
will-
due. Basically, what you're saying is you're saying the Bucs are the best because of Tom Brady, and I get it. Like betting against Brady is crazy, but I mean, this team isn't as good as people think it is. Like Mike Evans was getting handled as usual, and he's only getting older. But like, at what point? First of all, Chris Godwin is a wash for this year. Like, I'm not betting on him to do much of anything productive. Like, they brought him back too soon, so he's out. Julio, like we fall for this every year. Like, how many games do you think Julio is actually going to play? He's already played one, so he got what, 3 left? Like, I just don't see the Bucs making it to the finish line, and like everybody's just broken down.
like you, it was praying that we did not fall for the Julio thing and the Packers too late. I would say, please stay away from Julio in free agency. To the point, I'm actually so much happier that we took Sammy Watkins and did not get Julio Jones. That is how far Julio.
That's where we're at in life. We praying for Sammy Watkins to avoid Julio Jones.
That's where I am. But we mentioned Mike Evans now, and this is where I bring Ken in first. We saw what happened, and this is not the first time that Mike Evans has been suspended for a brawl, fight, dust up, whatever you want to call it, Marshawn Lattimore. I'll take you back, I think 2017, he got suspended a week for the same kind of incident, pushing him in the back before 2020, when Marshawn Lattimore then turned around and shoved him in kind and got a hefty $50,000 fine. Now we know that Mike Evans is suspended, but Ken, trying to forget your Saints bias, which is probably impossible, should Marshawn Lattimore have been suspended too, or did the NFL get this right?
Okay. So, to the first question that you asked, the first part of your question, should Marshawn Lattimore be suspended as well? If I can come out every time I play this team and basically negate a man completely to the point where he loses his head almost every single game, then maybe you should just suspend me for this game every time it turns up on the schedule. Why would you want to suspend Marshawn Lattimore? Now, the reason that Mike Evans got suspended for incited, like, they can't even say necessarily he incited it, because Tom Brady was the inciter of this entire situation. But I digress. The reason why Mike Evans is the one that received the suspension is because the silly boy decided that he was going to run back to the fight, to start the fight, because apparently he is Secret Service and Tom Brady is the president. Tom Brady, first off, had no right getting up in anybody's face, because it was your ball that landed out of bounds. It was not as if they could get there. Secondly, Marshawn Lattimore played that play perfectly. He recognized, oh, the ball seems to be coming to you. I'm going to nudge you over to the sideline. So even if you have a chance to catch this ball, you're going to come down out of bounds. He doesn't interfere with him to get a pass interference call. And Brady has lost his head as well. So Lattimore is walking back to the huddle, as the guys always do. They celebrate together when it's an incomplete pass. And Brady walks over and says something. Lattimore, we don't see what he says because they never give us the reverse angle. He turns around and says something back, to which Brady replies, bleep you, bleep. And then in comes Mike Evans. Like, I don't know what. Yeah, he put his cape on, and he's Superman because Lois Lane is in trouble. He rushes in and pushes down Marshawn Lattimore, right? So when I saw it in real time, I thought that Leonard Fournette also should have been kicked out of the game, because he was the one that you could say threw the first punch. He was the one that pushed Lattimore. Lattimore pushed him back, and then in comes Evans. But the refs decided that Fournette didn't do enough to get kicked out of the game. And all Lattimore did was defend himself. He got kicked out anyway. So, all right, fine, no problem. You can't don't look at the situation as it played out yesterday and tell me that Marshawn Lattimore deserves a suspension. What are you going to suspend him for? All he did was stand where he was, get pushed by one man, push him back, and then get pushed in the back. That's all he did. If Mike Evans had taken his long, lanky, can't catch a pass on the day backside off the field, then we would not have this problem. We would not be having this conversation. And chances are, you know what? Chances are the Saints might actually have won that game because Tom Brady was not getting anything with Marshawn Lattimore on the field. So, no, they should not have suspended Lattimore for anything. And as for the NFL getting it right, I personally believe that Evans should have gotten more than one game. And the reason for that is people have been pointing out the bad blood between these two. That is constant. But the bad blood only really exists on one side because if I am beating you and taking your lunch money all the time, you will run home to your parents and cry and complain, and I will go to the shop and I'll buy a bread and two off of you every single time. So why am I going to be upset about you? The bad blood is really on my Evans because he can't get the better of Marshawn Lattimore. So I believe that Evans should have been suspended a second game to let him know that, yes, we know that the man takes your lunch money all the time, but you need to find a way to better him, not try to beat him. And if they did that, then he would think twice about this. But as you mentioned, Justin, Lattimore's already gotten a $50,000 fine because of Evans. So, no, it's personal. You hit me in my pocket, so I'm going to hit you where it hurts the most in your number. So every time you line up against me, it is nothings.
I didn't want people, the viewers, to understand the definition of on-site is this rivalry right here. Like we've seen Peter Griffin and that big chicken in Family Guy, and I think that there is no more rivalry that on-site than these two. Jimmy, did the NFL get it right in terms of suspending Mike Evans?
Damn, I want to say, Kim, man, I felt that point you made, man. You a Saints fan for real. I want to say this about Mike Evans. I get it. Like, if I'm getting dog walked just about every time I play this man for years, like he's dog walked me since I got in the league, and now I got Tom Brady, Tom Brady is expecting you to be perfect every game, and I know I can't do it. What's the next best thing to do? Oh, I'm gonna pretend to defend him when it didn't need any defending to do in the first place. So Evans, I get what you were doing. Like you weren't gonna do anything. You tried to look tough in front of your guy Tom Brady, and you're like, all right, let me get kicked out so this dude can stop dogging me on national television. So I get what Mike Evans was trying to do. Now, did the NFL get it right? I'll start with that one. No, and I'll tell you why. In this situation, I wish the NFL would take a page from the NBA or like from baseball. I think when you get into situations like this where this is a common occurrence, you got to take history into account. And I've seen at least 3 times where if you care about player safety like you say you do, Mike Evans has cheap shot at Marshawn Lattimore to the point where he could be severely injured. I go back to, was it 2017 when Jameis was on the team and Mike Evans just comes from across the field and clears him and hits him in the back when he's not looking. That man could have been seriously injured for the season. Like you look at when Jokic hit Markieff Morris when he wasn't looking in his spine. Like he never came back. Like Mike Evans isn't a little guy. Like for him to come full speed, you're not expecting it. That could permanently damage him. And he did it again yesterday. The only thing was he was just in a better position to absorb the hit. But Mike Evans is, anytime they get into a scuffle, Mike Evans is looking for Marshawn Lattimore, whether he has anything to do with it or not. He's going to try to go over there and cheap shot him. Like if I'm the commissioner, I'm looking at, you've done this every year. Minimum 4 games and a fine. Like we can't have this. Like that's no different than me going to some player that's not expecting me to come and me just take out their legs because it's a fight. Like that player would be suspended for more than one game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be the same thing because of their history. Like, I don't see how the NFL looks at it any way other than that. Now, Marshawn Lattimore, I'm actually going to say he should not be suspended because what did he really do? You can talk back to people. I don't give a damn if it's Tom Brady or not,
Right.
especially when he's the one starting it. Tom Brady's the golden boy, but he can get these hands and I can talk to him. All right, we can have a conversation. And if the conversation, guys, has a few F's in it, it is what it is. He started it. But you can't say I'm going to get suspended from talking to somebody, then getting pushed by one player, and then having this idiot come from across the field and try to knock me out. And now I'm fighting 5 people on my own. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, Marshawn Lattimore did everything by the book. Took Mike Evans out of the game legally and stood up for himself, and now he's got people pushing him. Like, what did he do to get suspended? I don't get it. I think the NFL is just like tat for tat. Well, we kick your guy out, we'll kick their guy out, and that's the end of it. And it actually ended up hurting the Saints. And I called it right when Lattimore got kicked out the game. I was like, Saints are going to lose. Evans just did the perfect thing. Lattimore was the MVP of that game, and once he leaves, everything becomes easier for Brady. So I don't think he should have been suspended at all. I don't even think he should have been ejected. I think that was bullshit. Excuse my language.
You're good, and I'm going to go with you. I don't think Lattimore should have been ejected in the first place because, again, what are you ejecting him for? Are you saying he was the person? Because the only thing you could be ejecting Lattimore for is him instigating the scuffle. And we know who instigated. We saw it. It was Tom. Tom was the person who instigated that entire situation. So you can't be ejecting Marshawn for being the instigator nor fighting because, as you both correctly mentioned, they came at him. And what is he supposed to just take these hands? Like, no. I have to agree with both of you. It is like the NFL saw this as a one-off case when year after year after year, this is what goes on. You have to take history into effect. This is a repeat offender. I think he should have gotten no less than 3 games. You have to set a precedent and say, look, you are continually doing this. This is not good enough. We cannot have this. And to your point, Jimmy, it just shows me the NFL really just does not care about player safety. They say everything about player safety, and you have a guy running into a guy's spine blindsided, like running and the head start that Mike Evans got because he's coming from off of the field, running to the middle of the field to take this guy out.
Can you imagine if Aaron Donald, they got into a fight, and Aaron Donald just saw Tom Brady lacking, and is like, you know what? Here's my chance. I'm gonna go and just hit him like Mike Evans hit Marshawn Lattimore. Like, how many games do you think Aaron Donald would get for spearing Tom Brady when he wasn't looking? He'd probably be banned and have to get back all the money he's made. Like, it's really also a Tom Brady situation because I've seen Brady hit players sometimes, and it's like, are you gonna throw that flag because he did it right in front of you? Like, it's a Brady thing, and it's like you said, it's a tit for tat thing that makes no sense.
Absolutely no sense. You say you care about player safety, you add an extra game, and you add an extra playoff game. You say you care about player safety, and you see Mike Evans continually, time and time again, shove Marshawn Lattimore in the back, and you give him the same 1-game suspension over and over again, and hope that things change. Oh, well. Speaking of things that changed, though, yesterday, wow. I know we talk about any given Sunday, but that was any given Sunday. I am not sure in my time of watching the NFL have I seen a situation where 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 teams facing double-digit deficits in the fourth quarter came back and won, and not just won in double-digit deficits. They won. All 3 of these teams did it on the road. And we're talking about the Arizona Cardinals, the Miami Dolphins, and would you believe the New York Jets. Ken, of these 3 major fourth quarter comebacks, which was the most surprising for you?
I would have to say it was actually all right. So the most surprising of all would have been the Jets on the Browns because the Jets are the Jets. But when we look at the caliber of the teams involved, I believe it probably has to go to the Cardinals over the Raiders. Now, the Raiders, there are lots of people who were saying that the Raiders could finish third in the division. I picked them to finish fourth because the AFC West is ridiculously tough this season. But the Raiders are still supposed to be a pretty good team. Their defense was not horrendous last season. And then when you take into consideration the Cardinals that got mollywopped by the Kansas City Chiefs in week one, you would expect that the Raiders defense is supposed to be good enough to make sure that they win the game when they're up big on the Arizona Cardinals. And somehow they conspired to lose the game. They got in, they let them get a 2-point conversion at a time when nobody should be able to get open in the back of the end zone because what are you doing? Then you give them first it was a touchdown where rather than you play it to the line, you keep the majority of your defenders at the end zone line. They're like 4 yards back. So when the Oompa Loompa, that is the Arizona Cardinals quarterback, decides, okay, I'm just gonna run around, run around, run around, run around, run around. And I saw a tweet. I saw it today where it said that what's his name? His name is no escaping me. Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray runs like a toddler who's stolen his parents' phone. And when I saw a tweet, it was apt.
Y'all wrong,
It's,
man. Y'all
it's
wrong.
absolutely accurate though.
Y'all know that's why the man can't get his money, right? Because we out here just making short jokes like this man ain't the truth.
No, I'm saying he's a very good quarterback and he's very, very fast. But
Tyler's phone.
when you see him running on the field, he does resemble how a toddler runs when he has his parents' phone. I can't unsee it now. So so they give up way too much ground to allow him to run into the end zone and score this touchdown. They give up way too much space in the back of the end zone to allow the 2-point conversion. And I understand that you will want to distribute the ball a little bit better than what you did in week one because for the life of me, there's no game plan that works in the NFL if you're force feeding the ball to only one wide receiver, especially when you actually have quality options on your team. It's not like if this is the Green Bay Packers last season and Aaron Rodgers is going to put the ball where Davante Adams can go get it regardless because there's not really much else to throw the ball to. You still had Hunter Renfro. You still had, what's his name? The tight end. His name is Darren Waller. So you had options that you could throw the ball to. Last week, you force-fed the ball to Davante Adams. So apparently this week, you decided you're going to try to spread the ball around. Hunter Renfro fumbled the ball. And your idea, your best plan is to throw the ball to Hunter Renfro again. I mean, unfortunately, he did seem to be concussed on the play because he didn't know if it was Sunday or Tuesday after that play was over. But he fumbles the ball again, and they scoop and score. As the Raiders, you have to be kicking yourself on that flight back to Las Vegas because this was a game that was there for the taking. You had the game won. Your defense is supposed to be good enough to see this game out against the Cardinals team that right now is still trying to figure out what kind of team they want to be. So when I look at that, to me, that one was the most alarming. Maybe not surprising, but alarming.
Jimmy has his Dolphins hat on, so I'm guessing he's not going to go in Miami, being the most surprising. But still, of the three, which of the, I guess, shocking most, I don't know.
Game. Hey, first of all, I'm gonna defend my man Kyler. Look, if you on this podcast and you under 6 feet, you cannot be talking about Kyler looking like the kid toddler running with the phone. That goes for everybody because he's 5'9". There's a lot of people that's 5'9". I'm just saying.
Jimmy, every person on this podcast is 6 feet and above, so we have all
right.
right.
Yeah, all right. I'm just making sure. I know my boy. I know my boy is 6'4". I know Goat is 6'3". That's the only thing I'm sure of. But I'll let it slide because we all 6 foot and above. Now, funny thing is, I actually really didn't get to watch the Dolphins game because I'm not in that area. But I did get to watch the whole Cardinals game, and oddly enough, I got to watch the Jets game for some reason. Cardinals game was not surprising to me because if you watch that game outside of the first maybe quarter, like the Raiders stalled. Like Davante Adams got like 2 catches the first drive, and like I didn't hear from him again. So I was not surprised that the Cardinals came back as you saw it. Miami, I feel like the Ravens just were like, all right, we got this in the bag, and there was just too much time left. The Jets game, now that's ridiculous. Now it's absolutely this. Do you know that until yesterday, 2,229 consecutive NFL teams had lost when losing by 13 or more points in the final 2 minutes of a game? Like over 2,200 NFL teams in that same position that the Jets were in have lost. Like it's book it. Like you couldn't go to Vegas and get any better odds. Like it's going to be a loss. And the Jets won. And if you watch that game, first of all, Cleveland just folded on the last 2 drives. And they need Deshaun Watson in the worst possible way. Like, I don't like him, but this is why you went and got Deshaun Watson specifically for this. Because the Browns are the Browns. Like, Stefanski should have been fired. I would have pulled a Lane Kiffin and left him on the tarmac. But the thing is, I couldn't because it was a home game. I would have left him right there on the curb and be like, look, you can't even use anything that the team bought to get home. You got to walk, you got to Uber, you got to do something. Like, there's no way the Jets should have won that game. First of all, they shouldn't have been in the game, and they shouldn't have won it. They were down by more than 14 points with 2 minutes to go. Like, how does that happen? That by far was the most shocking. Like, I was even doubted it when they got the onside kick. I was like, nah, no way. And then they win. It's insane.
So let me see, right? I kind of worded this question badly because the most impressive for sure of the comebacks is Miami's, because you're down 21 and you're down 21 in the fourth quarter, and not only did you win on the road, you did it without even using overtime. You did it in regulation. But as Jimmy said, it has to be the Jets in Cleveland. And you want to know why it's the Jets in Cleveland? Because not only are the Jets bad, not only are the Jets trotting out the remains of Joe Flacco, the Browns had every single opportunity in their control to win the game. You can argue that the Ravens and the Raiders, there are certain things out of their control. Like, we've all tried to catch a toddler when they have their parents' phone. You can't catch that person. So, and like,
yeah, y'all just you. I hope Kyler, man. I hope you watching the show, man. Look, it's not me, it's them. I promise you.
And as much as the Ravens like trotting out, I want to look here: Marcus Williams, Marlon Humphrey, and Marcus Peters. What happened with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle should never ever happen when you have that defensive backfield. But again, Tyreek Hill is fast, so I may excuse at least one of the players, right? The Cleveland Browns twice had the chance to simply go to the ground. Twice. One, Nick Chubb goes out of bounds instead of staying in bounds. And the second one, he took the touchdown. 2 plays, all you had to do was the simplest thing that we of all as kids do, go to the ground. All you had to do is go to the ground. The game is over. Then even after those 2 plays, all you had to do was score the extra point. And you don't at least lose in regulation. 3 chances you had to ice this game, and all 3, you let the worst team in football with the dying remains of Joe Flacco come from 2 scores behind in the final 2 minutes to beat you in your stadium. You're right, Jimmy. Stefanski should never have been able to leave with a headset after that game. I'd have fired him, take off all your clothes, anything brown, not just with the Browns logo, anything you're wearing, whether brown khakis, brown shoes, take it off and do not return, because what happened was inexcusable. But I do want to say, though, Jimmy, the most impressive thing I saw was that Dolphins comeback. So now we switch to that team, that next segment. As Neil puts it up now, I'm going to have to ask the Dolphins fan, Jimmy, 2-0, one impressive comeback. Are your Dolphins legit? Because I don't know.
What's legit? Because I feel like this is a trap question. I feel like you're trapping this the same way you asked us about the Packers. Like, what's legit? Do I think it's
Is
legit
this
making the
a
playoffs?
legit
Is
playoff?
legit making the AFC Championship? Or is legit going to the Super Bowl? I'll let you pick, and I'll determine how I answer.
Is this a team that can make the playoffs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they can make the playoffs because the AFC East is horrible. Like, it's the Jets and the remains of Bill Belichick coaching the Patriots right now. It's just us and the Bills. So, like, yeah, we can make the playoffs. But I'm just looking at it. I think yesterday was more about, and this is why I didn't pick this game as the most impressive. I think yesterday was just a victim of circumstance for the Ravens. Like, they were up so big early, and it was just too much time left, and they just like had to keep playing. I can see them being disinterested, and then all right, now we're down 14. Now they're down 7. Now it's like, oh, it's a game again. Like mentally, they were like, all right, we already won. But when I look at the AFC, they're not better than the Chiefs. They're not better than the Bills. They're not better than the Bengals to me. They're not better than the Chargers. And I still don't think we're better than the Ravens. And like yesterday kind of proved it. Like, look at what Lamar did to us. I think first player in NFL history, 75-yard touchdown on the ground, 75-yard touchdown through the air in the same game. Like, that team is still better than us. And the reason I'm going to say that we're not legit yet is there are still things that we are struggling with. And you saw it yesterday that I don't consider legit teams to have these issues that are so glaring. One, we still can't run the ball. For whatever reason is, the offensive line is still not better. We still can't run the ball. And our defense is not as good as it was last year. Like, look at what the Ravens did to us. Like, they don't even pass the ball that much. And it was just every time I look up on a replay, it's a pass. Somebody's running free. Lamar is running free. So I just think we can make the playoffs for the same reason that the Packers can make the playoffs. It's our division, but are we legit? As of now, I got to say no, because I can think of 5 or 6 teams that I just think in a playoff game we have no shot against.
Same question, Ken. Are Dolphins legit, or are you going with Jimmy and saying pump the brakes?
No, I'll have to say pump the brakes. And Jimmy just gave us 6 teams that are better than the Dolphins. And he didn't call the Kansas City Chiefs, who... sorry.
I'm saying the Chiefs because I picked them to win the Super Bowl before the season, so I still think they'll always be the team to beat in the AFC.
Okay, so there you go. So when we look at the teams that we can consider have a good chance to make the playoffs, we have the Chiefs, the Chargers, we have the Ravens, we have the Bengals, we have somebody from the AFC South, because it could be the Titans. Well, most likely it might be the Titans because
Jags. We see it coming. I called it. We see it coming. It's going to be the Jags.
You did say this.
Okay, so you're putting the Jags up there. I'm definitely not that bold, but
And you haven't even mentioned Buffalo yet.
Exactly, we haven't mentioned Buffalo yet. So no, we have 6 teams and just basically 1 spot left. Now, at the beginning of the season, I said that I thought Denver were going to be one of these wildcard teams. That's the entirety of the AFC playoff field, gentlemen. If we go that route, then the Dolphins don't make it. But right now, this is 2 weeks into the NFL season, and what the hell do we know? So at this point, we could conceivably see the Dolphins making it to the playoffs because one of the aforementioned teams could potentially not make it. After all, the Dolphins are 2-0 and the Bengals are 1-2. This is the bizarre world that we currently exist in. But what I've seen so far of the Dolphins actually does make me feel a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? More hopeful for their prospects this season. Because Tua Tagovailoa has been probably the most criticized quarterback in the NFL since he's been there. And that is, I have just put in that since he's been there because he still has not recently gotten up to the amount of criticism that Lamar Jackson has had in his entirety of his career. But since Tua has been there, remember when people were tanking for Tua? Apparently, no. Since Tua got into the league, Tua's not that good. So
Rightfully so, though. I mean, look what it's going up against. Because I'm a Dolphins fan, and I get it. I don't think Tua is the answer, but I'm not. I don't want to say he's trash. I just don't think he's a franchise quarterback like a Burrow or Herbert, and it's obvious
so no.
that he's just not a guy that's going to elevate the team on talent alone. Like everything has to be built up around him.
So no. So basically, then Tua has become the new Mendoza line of quarterbacks. He is the new Andy Dalton, which is if you have a better quarterback than Tua, then you're fine. If you have a worse quarterback than Tua, you need a quarterback. So when we see what Tua did yesterday, like Tua put out one of because I didn't watch the majority of that game. I had it on Red Zone for a while, and then when I don't remember which game I was watching, finished, they switched to that one. Tua had one of the highest numbers of fantasy points I have ever seen, ever. He had like 93 and a half points in a PPR league. And I'm like, but this is Tua. Tua had Jalen Waddle with 171 yards and Tyreek Hill with 180. Both of them had 2 touchdowns in that game. This is Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins. Everybody else in the AFC needs to be a little concerned about the Dolphins. Because when you see what they're able to do on offense so far, that should make you a little bit concerned if you are in the AFC. Defensively, we still don't quite know because, yeah, they beat the Patriots, but the Patriots' offense is probably bottom 5 in the league right now. And then they give up a boatload of points to the Ravens. And then the offense found a way to get them back in the game. But I take the point, which is that, the Ravens just thought that the game was done and dusted. And, they took their eyes off the ball. And then all of a sudden the game was tight. And they couldn't find a way to get their focus back. So the Dolphins are a legitimate threat to make the playoffs. But more than that, not at this point.
I don't know. That's why I actually asked you all this question because I don't know.
You know the answer. In your heart, you know the answer to this question.
No.
It's the Dolphins. Come on. Like as I wear this hat, you know that there's nothing of importance in your life that you can put up to say, like, you know what? I think they can do it. Because you just know you're going to lose whatever it is you put up.
I don't trust Tua Tagovailoa. I will say I like the job that Mike McDaniels is doing. I was not a fan of giving up all you did to get Tyreek Hill because I'm on record as saying receivers don't win games, but what the hell do I know?
That's like the most Packers answer ever. Receivers don't
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, but receivers don't win games, but I'm not a fan of what they gave up, but I have not seen a lot of the Dolphins. Hopefully I will watch what they do in week 3. I guess they're playing Buffalo. I'm almost certain. So I will check them then. I just don't know. I don't know what to make of Tua. I do know that, as Jimmy said, the line isn't the best because they still can't run the football, and that's what their coach is predicated on. That's where this Mike Shanahan tree that he comes from. So I find it weird they can't run the football.
Yeah, does that worry you? Like, our coach is the run game coordinator, and we can't run the ball.
That is, as I said, that not even defense. That is the main concern. This is a man who has come from a tree of coaches who run the football. He was the run coordinator in San Francisco. You bring Raheem Mostert, and the team still cannot run the football. Like, that is a concern. I will go to your point. I will list them in my mind. I am not high on the Chargers, by the way. But you do mention they are the Chiefs, they are the Broncos. Sorry, they're Chiefs, they're the Bills. Somebody has to come from the AFC South. I have no idea who that will be. I don't think they're better than the Ravens, like Jimmy said. I think the Chargers are still fool's gold. And what is happening in Cincy does not shock me in the least because I've said it over and over again. And Neil, is tired of hearing me saying this other line. Games in football are won in the trenches. You can talk about all these pretty skill position players you want. Games are won in the trenches. So this is the perfect segue into the Cincinnati segment. And guys, I'll kick it off this time. The Cincinnati Bengals are who I always thought they were. They were fortunate. They got hot at the right time last season, and they got there. And I mean, you can only play who's in front of you, and they played good football towards the end. But when everyone was saying, oh, this is a team that's going to definitely make it back to multiple Super Bowls afterwards, I said, pump the brakes on that. The AFC is loaded. The AFC North is a very, very tough division. And you cannot continue to think you can win football games without offensive line. I know they spent money in the offseason on that offensive line, but I've come to understand, and this is where my Packer bias shows, because we know it comes down, offensive line comes down to coaching. I care not what you do in the offseason in terms of money, unless you're drafting offensive linemen. Coaching, and that's why we in the Green Bay Packers have been able to develop so many good offensive linemen throughout the history of this franchise, because we know how to coach offensive linemen. What is going on there in Cincinnati is terrible offensive line play. Now, at first I was thinking Zach Taylor was a problem because you have Joe Burrow dropping back so many times until they did a deeper dive. He's not just a problem. That offensive line is so bad that Joe Mixon is averaging 3 yards per touch. And it is not like he's only rushed 10 or 15 times. Guys, I'm going to look down here right now. Joe Mixon has rushed for 46 times already this season and is averaging exactly 3 yards per carry. That is your offensive line. You have problems creating lanes. You have problems protecting your quarterback. Yesterday, and I'm not saying that Micah Parsons is not good, because damn, he's good. But Micah Parsons looked like the best player ever to play football yesterday. You left him unblocked, you left him one-on-one, and you just could not do whatever. And Micah Parsons is extremely damn good. But that offensive line is terrible. So to answer the question, can these Bengals save their season? I'm going to actually go and say, guys, and it's only been 2 weeks, no. Because as y'all mentioned, the AFC is so deep, and you're going to continue to play teams with that bad offensive line. Ken, sorry for taking over this show, but do you think that the Bengals can still save their season after falling into an 0-2 hole?
So, I mean, at the end of the day, Justin, this is your show. So if you want to take it over, by all means, do that.
Well, and to take it over, let me add one more thing. Joe Burrow has already been sacked, guys, 13 times for the season. 13 times.
Business as usual in Cincinnati.
That is on pace for getting sacked, over 100 times this season? Like, gosh. Take it away, Ken.
So the funny thing about this, right, is that I believe that the Bengals, they do have enough pieces that if they can raise their level of play, they should easily be a wild card team, if not be knocking around the top of the division. Because the Ravens, while the Ravens are a better team, the Ravens have not been convincing enough to say that they are way ahead of what the Bengals can hope to achieve this season. And we just have to look at yesterday's game for evidence of this. But as you said, when you look at their offensive line right now is a bunch of dots, is not even dashes. There is so much space between these tackles and these guards that the opposing pass rushers are living in their backfield, which means they cannot run the ball, making them one-dimensional. No one-dimensional team wins the Super Bowl. You need to be able to run the ball and pass the ball. One of my biggest complaints about the Saints game last week when we played against the Falcons that we got pretty lucky to win was that the Saints could not run block nor could they pass block. And that is why we could not do anything on offense for 3 quarters. When you take what is happening in Cincinnati, it is exactly what happened in that Saints game for 3 quarters last week. They can't run block, which is why Joe Mixon is averaging 3 runs a carry. And he's averaging three. For those who understand math, when you see Joe Mixon scampering for like 9 or 10 yards on a first down, that just means that he has a lot of negative plays coming. Because if they decide that they're going to sell out to stop the run, then that's a problem. And when they sell out to stop the run and they're still getting penetration on the pass, then it means that T. Higgins can't get involved. Jamar Chase can't get involved. None of these wide receivers can try to get open because they can't get open fast enough because their offensive line is breaking down. I still believe that, like I said, the Bengals, they have the pieces, especially on offense, that when they go up against lesser teams that do not have as good a pass rush, teams that do not have as good a defense in general, they are going to be able to win those games, but those games are going to be a shootout because their offense is still going to be under pressure for the majority of it, and their defense, it still has Eli Apple starting at corner. So when you put all of that together, it is going to be a problem for Cincinnati. I think they can, but they have to improve significantly to be able to do it.
Jimmy, can Bengals come out of this 0-2 hole?
Oh, so before I get to that, Ken, good point about when they get into games with teams that don't have a pass rush, they might have a chance. That's the only reason why I've kind of put them talent-wise above the Dolphins, because I don't think we can rush them enough to take advantage of that. But Justin, this is funny that we're having this conversation because I'm gonna go back specifically. I don't know whose show it was, but I feel like all of us were there. It was your show. Oh, it was your show. All of us were there, and we were talking about this, and everybody was saying this man's full name like he was just Brady reincarnated. And I think it was you, me. I remember. I think Don was there. I think it was just us three.
And the shiftiest man in all of business, Dwayne Marcus.
No, he was on the Burrow train, and I could have swore what's going on right now, we said is what would happen. And it's exactly what's going on. First of all, if you're listening, you're no longer allowed to say this man's full name. He is Joe Burrow. That's it. Not Joseph, not Lee, not the third, not none of that. He's not Burr. It's Joe Burrow until they win a game. Now, I'll take it one step further. I don't think, not only do I not think they can fix it, shout out to Don too, because I know this is one of the few things that we did agree on. We both left the Bengals out of the playoffs for this specific reason. And I don't think they can fix it. And it's because, one, I like your points about last year they did get lucky. They did get lucky. And I feel like Joe Burrow, whatever contract he signs, he needs to donate some of that to Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson doesn't go down and lose the number one seed for the Ravens. The Titans don't have it, which means they don't get to play the weakest number one seed I've ever seen in sports history. Like, that's the weakest number one. And then they get the Chiefs twice. And it's just really hard to play a team that's hot twice in that period of time at the end of the year. So they got really lucky. But I don't think it's fixable, and it's because the Bengals obviously have not fixed the offensive line, which we can all see. But I think it's deeper than that. And this is something that I think you and I talked about, and we tried to make the point is the Bengals have been trying to fix their offensive line before Joe Burrow even got there. They've taken guys in the first round. Problem is, they all suck. And I don't know who's the person over there that's scouting the offensive line, but I hope they don't have a job. I hope that this is somebody new that's making new mistakes, because I've never seen a team that has been so inept at scouting one position. Like, if you're this bad, go overpay for somebody in free agency, like that you know is good.
They did.
That you know is good.
And it didn't.
Like,
which is why he said this is coaching.
It's terrible. I think and I like your point about coaching. I do think it's coaching because Zach Taylor has proven that. Why are you not adjusting to your deficiencies? You know your offensive line can't hold up. So why are you trying to hit these deep passes with Chase and Higgins? Like, turn this into a quick hitting, short passing game until we can hold up. Like, run the ball. short passes to the running backs. Like, I don't understand how Joe Mixon is not Aaron Jones Jr. like with usage. Like, it makes no sense. Like, he can do that. But yeah, I think Zach Taylor just is not a good coach. I don't think he's good at adjustments, and I think that's a problem. They can't scout an offensive lineman to save their life, and then once they get there, they can't coach him. So you're already bringing in a sorry lineman, and then you can't coach him up. So that's bad. And some of this I got to put on Joe Burrow. You know they're bad. Do something. Run. Get rid of the ball. Yeah, like, I feel like Joe Burrow is trying to hit. He's playing every game like he's back at LSU. Like, oh, yeah, I got Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. I'm just trying to hit this big play. Like, it's the NFL. Like, you better go talk to David Carr, and see how this path that you're going on ends up. Like, it's not going to be pretty. Like, you might not even make it to a contract extension if you don't switch up your style of play, or you don't go to your front office and say, look, like, if I have to pick the offensive lineman myself, we will do that, but this is not working. And I don't think that this is something that's going to be fixed. And that's why I don't have them making the playoffs. And it's showing now because they've already lost 2 games. The turnovers are high. Joe Burrow's getting beat to a pulp already, like you said. And, like, how does this just go away? I don't see how it gets fixed.
I remember I said on our draft special, I was shocked when Cincinnati passed up Peninsula to go for Jamar Chase. And then, obviously, Jamar has that rookie season, and everyone is like, Justin, you don't know about football. But I do. Because, look, no, you love to have Peninsula on that left side now, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. Well, sorry, guys. I'm actually forgetting my own running order, so I had to look down at my computer. You mentioned about getting hurt at the quarterback position, Jimmy. Well, somebody actually did get hurt and knocked out for the entire season, and that is indeed Trey Lance. I think he's the 3rd starting quarterback under Kyle Shanahan that has gotten injured and knocked out for an entire season. But guess what? They weren't able to trade Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason. So guess who's under center again? So Ken, I hate to see this because no one wants to see somebody get hurt, and especially not the injury that Trey Lance had. And you don't want to see players missing an entire season, especially if they're young. But are the San Francisco 49ers actually fortunate that that injury occurred because Jimmy Garoppolo is now their starting quarterback?
So this is a tough question to answer for me. And the reason why I say it's a tough question to answer is because of what the San Francisco 49ers was telling everyone that they wanted to do this season. And that was, 1, they wanted to move on from Jimmy. And 2, they wanted to have a more expressive passing game because Jimmy is not that. Jimmy, we know what the book is on Jimmy Garoppolo at this point, and he doesn't have the biggest arm. Trey Lance has the arm. He's not the most mobile, but Trey Lance is supposed to be a lot more mobile. Therefore, if you are expecting to have this varied rushing attack, which is what Shanahan clearly always wants to do and doesn't want to do anything else, then you are going to have a better opportunity to do that with Trey Lance healthy than with Jimmy. But Trey Lance is not built like Josh Allen, and that is where, for me, that is where the biggest issue came with what happened yesterday. Trey Lance, at his height, at his size, in his 2nd start or 3rd start, because he started a couple games last season, you cannot expect this frail-ish man to run quarterback power up the middle. You are begging for him to get hurt. And it's unfortunate that that actually did occur. So now Jimmy comes in, and as the commentator said, immediately from the time Trey Lance goes down and Jimmy comes in, you basically have to take half of your playbook and just throw it out the window because Jimmy can't do those things that Trey Lance were doing. And one of the questions that I had when I saw this happen, because the 49ers were so hell-bent on getting Jimmy up out of the building, They were not letting him practice. They were not letting him play. They were showing him the playbook because obviously, if I'm showing you my playbook, but then you might end up at Seattle, you're gonna go over there and just stand up in front of the board and say, "Fellas, take out your phone. I'm diagramming every single play that these guys have in their playbook." So now Jimmy comes in with how much practice? We really don't know. I guess he started practicing since they were able to get him to renegotiate his contract and take $7 million guaranteed this season, as opposed to the 20 odd that he was supposed to get. So he comes in, and all of a sudden, now they look like an efficient offense passing the ball because you still have quality playmakers on the outside. Kittle missed the game again, but Jimmy gives you the option to throw the ball. Yeah, you can't read option run with the quarterback, but you can do pretty much everything else. So when I saw what happened yesterday, given the fact that in this league, as we've been saying all along, you can't be one dimensional. And as much as the 49ers have tried to do that, they've not reached the Super Bowl since everybody found out about Jimmy. And they found out that the coach doesn't trust Jimmy. And 2 years
Right. So
2 years later, they still don't trust Jimmy. Otherwise, they wouldn't have tried to get rid of him, right? So now they have the rest of the season to try to figure this out. Jimmy has an opportunity to audition for his next job. But as far as the 49ers are concerned, they now have to show the rest of the league that Jimmy can pilot this offense and be effective to the point that it is better than it was before. Because what it was last year missed the playoffs. No, sorry, it didn't miss the playoffs. They beat you guys in the playoffs. But it didn't get very far, or it didn't get far enough in the playoffs because they're still one dimensional, and their coach, as much as we talk about Zach Taylor not making adjustments, Kyle Shanahan doesn't like to make adjustments either. So what are we going to see now for the next 15, 16 weeks?
what will we see for the next 15, 16 weeks, Jimmy? Are these 49ers better off with Trey Lance or with Jimmy Garoppolo currently under center?
I agree with Ken. That's a hard question to answer. I'll tell you one thing. I think they're happier. That's for sure. They're happier that with Jimmy Garoppolo than Trey Lance. And it's because I think in an odd way with Jimmy Garoppolo, if they don't get it done with him at quarterback, he's a scapegoat. Rather than if they don't do it with Trey Lance, it's on the 49ers because you drafted this guy number 3 overall. So I think everybody in the building's happier. Lynch and Shanahan are like, all right, we got another year to not get blamed. The players are happy because some of them are more familiar with Jimmy, Deebo Samuel being one of them, where it's like, all right, cool. Now I can eat the way I'm used to eating. So I don't know if they're better. I'll tell you what, Jimmy Garoppolo is definitely happy because Trey Lance injury got him $350,000 yesterday just for going in there and winning that game. So his bank account is happier. If I were the Dolphins, I'd give a call to the 49ers and see how much Trey Lance costs because I might be interested. Because I think he's going to be a good quarterback. I just think it's got to be the right situation. Like the 49ers are not a good situation for any quarterback because the GM and the head coach aren't on the same page, and you saw that before the draft. Mac Jones versus Trey Lance. Better, I don't know because like how can I say they're better? Like I've seen like what the Jimmy Garoppolo experience looks like. Like you're either gonna overachieve and disappoint me later, or you're gonna underachieve and disappoint me now. Like how is that better? Like I know exactly what I'm gonna get. It's like going back to like a shitty ex-girlfriend 2 girlfriends ago. Like I know what to expect. Like I know how this situation ends. I just don't think the ceiling is as high as it would have been with Trey Lance. And they're not better because we're acting like Jimmy Garoppolo is a picture of health too. Like he don't even run, and he always hurts. Like that's been his biggest knock in San Fran. He was even hurt in New England. Like if you a non-running quarterback that's getting hurt, like you a pocket passer, like that's alarming to me because you should be the one that's the healthiest. So what happens if he gets hurt on cue? Like then what are they gonna do? Like I just don't see how this makes them better. Like at least with Trey Lance, I know that there's a chance that it's a moonshot. Like their ceiling is raised, and now it's just like back to normal. Like it's what we've always seen. Like we gotta hope that they just can out physical everybody all year, and we don't know if they can do that.
I can answer this one question. The 49ers are not better off financially, as you alluded to, Jimmy, because every single game that Jimmy Garoppolo plays at least 25% of snaps, he gets a $25,000 in bonus money. And if that results in a win, that goes up to $30,000 or $35,000.
Jimmy G will be every time they win. We know Jimmy G will be turning up. Like it's a quarterback thing. They're like they turn up. Like we saw the Trey Lance video. We saw Jimmy G 2 off seasons ago. Like it's something in the water in the 49ers facilities with them quarterbacks just out there living life.
It is to the point that Jimmy Garoppolo can actually make $5.6 million in incentives this season, if obviously he wins every single game. It is a tough question to ask or answer, sorry, but I will say it. I think they are better off in the short term with Jimmy, simply because Trey Lance's inexperience is a problem for a team looking to win a title right now. This is a guy who only has, 19 games started in college and the pros combined. And if you take the last 2-3 seasons, it's only, 3 or 4? You don't.
Move on, Justin. From that point, I saw a tweet where it said that Trey Lance has not played consecutive games since 2019. Because 2020, he played one game and then it was COVID. He played 2 games last season, week 5 and week 17. And now he played the first game in the monsoon, and now his ankle is broken.
But that's the thing, right? He is raw coming out of college. Hardly played in college and played at a lower level. He did play D1 Power 5 football, huh?
Like, and we've seen like where you play doesn't matter. It's talent. Josh Allen played at Wyoming and didn't even pass for 2,000 yards. Now everybody say he's going to win the MVP. Like it's with quarterbacks, it's about talent and where you land. Like I think schematically, Trey Lance landed in a good situation, but it's like mentally, it's not a good situation because John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan just are never on the same page about the quarterback. And like as a young guy, like that's the worst possible situation you can be in. Like, they got to be all in on you when they take you at number 3.
And so you don't know how the team is going to be built around Trey Lance. And you see his mechanics. He's still very raw. He is not extremely accurate, especially not down the field. And you don't expect that from a young quarterback. So it's going to take time to develop. The problem is this is a team that has championship aspirations right this minute. And that's why I say Jimmy Garoppolo is probably the better of the 2 options at the moment. You're both correct. In time, when Trey Lance becomes who he's supposed to become, he is going to give so many added dimensions to that offense in terms of being able to play outside the pocket, in terms of extending plays, in terms of being a dual threat quarterback that can run the football, and also that big cannon of an arm. You're going to be able to stretch the field. But can you wait on that when you are a play away from making the Super Bowl last season? Like, because as much as we want to put that on Jimmy Garoppolo, let us not forget that there was a simple interception that all 3 of us would probably have taken. And had that interception been taken, we're talking about the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl and not the LA Rams. Like, can we put that on Jimmy G? Probably not. Jimmy G has his flaws. There's no questions about that. Limited arm strength, absolutely zero mobility. Like we talk about Tom Brady. This is Tom Brady 2.0, just probably a taller, lankier version. And yet still what this team wants is a very, very good defense, physical defense, and a very, very strong running team with 2 elite options on the offense when we're talking about Deebo Samuel, a pocket knife who can do absolutely everything. And to me, the person who I absolutely love the most, the best tight end when healthy in my estimation, is George Kittle. These are 2 elite weapons, a great defense. This is a team looking to win now. I don't know the last time, well, I do because his name is Patrick Mahomes. But outside of Patrick Mahomes, I can't tell you the last time a team was led by a second-year quarterback to win a title. So I'm going to go, and I'm fortunate that Trey is done for the season and has to start all over again. But I felt like going forward, even after they drafted Trey Lance, if you wanted to give Trey Lance a job, I always felt Trey Lance should have been forced to beat Jimmy G in the offseason. Like, all right, you want to make him the starter, let him earn it. Let him outplay Jimmy G in preseason football in the offseason. And then
But you got to do that. You got to do that year one though. Like you can't be like, okay, like we drafted you the first year, we knew you weren't ready, so we sat you. But now the second year, you got to compete. Like no, it's like either year one or year two, I'm playing. Like you got to throw me in the deep end. Like you can't just be like, well, I'm gonna kick the can down the road until you can beat out this guy. Then why did you draft me? Like that's a bad move to make.
Why did you draft him? Because you had Super Bowl.
Because they know. You know why they drafted him? To go against what you just said. Super Bowl, if Jimmy G makes that pass to George Kittle before the half, they probably win the game. Last year, if he makes some passes against the Rams in that playoff game, they probably go to the Super Bowl. Like, I know everybody wants to say, like, oh, if the safety didn't drop the interception, like, no, like, Jimmy G is your quarterback. Like, he's supposed to be this person that makes those plays. Like, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, doesn't matter if people drop interceptions. Like, they're going to make the plays themselves. Like, Jimmy G is not that guy. Like, after last year, you saw what happened. I would have just got what I could have for him and just said, "Look, I'm gonna live and die with Trey Lance." Because you got to know, like, he's on a rookie deal for 4 to 5 years. Like, he's gonna be there.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, when you go back a couple of years, when I don't keep making this point, there is no starting caliber quarterback in the league that is going to throw 8 passes over 2 playoff games. And that is what
Justin Fields would.
But playoff games. We talking playoff games. We're not just talking games. We're talking playoff games. Got me sound like Herm at this point. But we when you have Jimmy, who you would think probably had a better team then, and only throws because he almost gave the game away in the first round of the playoffs, and they were like, nope. When it comes to the divisional round and the championship round, fella, you are not throwing this ball. So we are just going to hand it off and run and run and run. 8 passes over 2 playoff games. That lets you know what the team thinks about Jimmy Garoppolo. And I personally believe that the 49ers, they gave up far more than they would have had to give up in any case if they wanted to get a quarterback in that draft, because Lamar Jones fell to 15, and I don't remember where they would have been drafting otherwise. But to give up, I think it was 2 first-round picks to move from wherever they were, 3 first-round picks to move from wherever they were to get it to number 3 overall. You don't need to move that far because
and they didn't even know who they wanted.
Exactly. So you could have bided your time.
It feels.
And I'm glad you said that. Ken, I don't want to cut you off because this is the ultimate point. Because I said this before the draft. I'm saying it. I've been saying it after the draft. I'm gonna say it again. 49ers should have just drafted Justin Fields because talent-wise, he's clearly the best quarterback in the class, and he's been the most ready that I see as a passer. It's just he's in the worst situation. Like, you imagine if Justin Fields was in this offense. He already understands how to pass the ball. Better thrower than Trey Lance, more NFL ready. Like, if you're going to draft a running quarterback, why don't you just draft the guy that played at a Power 5 school that just took his team to a national championship game? Like, you just drafted him. Like, I just don't understand where the fascination with Trey Lance came from. Like you said, he was good like 2 years before they drafted him. He didn't play the year before.
So I think that a lot of these teams that can't come out to the Bay, because the Raiders, they were down in the Bay before they moved to Vegas. Like, a lot of them think that they know better than everybody else. I guess it might be something to do with having Silicon Valley just around the way, because everybody else believed that Trey Lance would not have been ready to go, but the 49ers started her.
Everybody
think they're the Warriors.
Everybody knew.
Like, oh, we know better, like you said.
Ready.
Right. So no, and I liken that to the Raiders, who constantly pick players that everybody looks at them like, who is this and why are you picking them in the first round? Because they think that they know better than everybody else. And then when it blows up in their face spectacularly, and it feels dirty to put Trey Lance in that category because he got hurt, as opposed to what happened to the 2 first-round picks that the Raiders had. That one is currently sitting in jail, the other one is out of the league. Then they just cut Leatherwood, their other first-round pick from last season. What is happening in that section of the United States of America? Because clearly it's something different to everywhere else that football is played.
Might
I think it's a Shanahan thing though. Like Shanahan has notoriously been a bad drafter. Like you give him a team that's already like talent evaluated that's good, he can perform. But like when he's the guy that has to go pick, like how many, like look at the running backs. Like they will spend the high round pick on a running back, and that running back will suck, and then the guy that they got in rookie free agency will be the best running back on the team by week 3. Like it's like clockwork. Like just don't invest in the guy they drafted. The guy they got for free will always be better. It's even been that way with their quarterbacks. They spent all that money on Jimmy G, and like there were moments where like people were like, "That Nick Mullins kid looks kind of."
It's true.
It's the same thing. Like I just think him and John Lynch have been a bad match from the start, and that's why you hear about them always rifting. And both their guys they wanted are bad choices. Like Mac Jones would have been just Jimmy G like he would have not elevated his team. And Trey Lance, we see what's happened so far. Like, I just think it's a bad match, and I think they're both just bad at evaluating talent.
It makes you really wonder why not take Justin Fields. But I think the epilepsy situation, as we come to find out, was the real serious situation. Was the reason. And
we know the real reason why they didn't want him. We know. It's Ohio State quarterback, and it's the other thing that we're not going to talk about. So,
we talked about it on this show, but if you don't want to talk about it,
oh yeah. If Justin Fields was named Josh Fields, he would have been drafted number 1 overall.
Probably at least number 2, because you can't not take in Trevor Lawrence number 1. Like you can't not.
That's also something I know we're scheduled to talk about on our show, but I think people need to go back and really look at that. Is it 2020 quarterback class? Everybody said it was going to be so great. Like they're all horrible right now.
Well, Trevor Lawrence,
they're all bad
yesterday, but yeah, other than that, yeah, they're abysmal. But guys, we're going to wrap up quickly. So, Ken, I'll start with you. The 2 Monday night games, one currently in progress and one after that. Who wins? And just quickly. Don't even tell me.
Yeah, so Bills and Vikings.
Sounds like same thing, Jimmy.
Bills and Philly. Got to go with the Eagles. They might be the second best team in the NFC.
Very well, maybe. I can't pick the Vikings, so Eagles and Bills. So, guys, also, as we're wrapping up, I just want to give a quick shout out to Becky Hammond and the Las Vegas Raiders. Oh, Las Vegas Aces, so very sorry for winning their first title in franchise history, especially Becky Hammond, the first-year coach, winning. Wrapped it up yesterday. See the championship 3-1 over the Connecticut Sun, so well done. The Aces. So, guys, I'll let you all plug the all show before you get out of here. Go right ahead. Ken Green Beige is my Bajan brother, so plug yourself.
Yeah, so the Green Beige podcast, we've had to make some adjustments this season. Right now, we are your late night fix on Tuesdays and most Wednesdays, where we have our regular show on Tuesdays at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Mountain, where I am, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, where we look at what happened over the week. We have some fun games that we play, like Who Do You Trust? And we have a new one this season, which is called name slips me, Justin, all of a sudden. So, but we are on tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Central. No, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 Mountain, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, and then on Wednesday as well. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Green Beige. So green like the color and BAJE.
Beige for Bajan, because I will indeed be guest appearing, filling in for the green part of the Green Beige. I'll be filling in tomorrow night. So as Ken said, please catch that show when you can. And then one half of the dynamic duo, JT, is here to represent for JT and the Dawn. Go right ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, thanks. JT and the Dawn, you can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast, so Spotify, anywhere. Also follow us on social media. We do a lot on Instagram, JT and the Dawn. We're also on Twitter and TikTok as well.
Well, you know how it is. If you're not If you can't find us, then you're not looking. That's hashtag just in on all social media platforms. Please put in the hashtag or you will be taken to Max Kellerman. And no sports fan in their right mind really wants to sit down and listen to Max Kellerman. So that is hashtag this just in. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. And we are on YouTube every Monday night. Currently, as the season starts, until daylight savings time, we will be 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, and then we will switch back to our regular time after daylight savings time start. So for Ken of the Green Page podcast and one half of JT and the Don Eichmann D. Justin of hashtag Justin, thank you for signing into our start of season 3. Enjoy the new intro, and again, rest in peace, Gavin Hinkson. Good night, everyone.
I know that after tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars. No. I
Come take a look at my dream world.
Tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars.
Chat, if you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars, make one wish, you're looking at the